Well, good evening, I guess 4 o'clock this evening, or whatever. But thanks for coming. Nice to see a full house here. Today that we're going to be talking about kind of public works and some of the things that, we've had snow, we've had flooding, we've got lot clearing. I mean, so I think there's some things that people have questions on, and I brought two of my experts, and they probably can answer the questions better than I can. One of the things as being mayor that I've been so impressed with the staff that works. Marshall and John have been great, and what I like about them is when I pick up the phone and call them about whatever the issue is, they're straight shooters. They'll tell me what the problem is, why we can fix it or why we can't fix it. And I think that probably these two guys are the ones that you probably interact a lot more than I do, because if there's something that, whether we got flooding someplace or a sign down or a deer in the middle of the road or whatever, I mean, these are the guys that take care of it. So the goal today is, actually it's their show. They've got the answers, and some of it is a resource issue that that we need to work on, and myself and the council are probably working on some of those things. But again, I want them to talk about what they're doing, what the process is, and why we have some of the stuff going on. So I'm going to first turn it over to Marshall. And so Marshall, if you could just introduce yourself, give you a little bit of history of Ocean Shores and what you're working on, and then we can have John talk about some stuff.
Okay, great. So again, my name is Marshall Reed. I'm the new city planner. I'm not as new anymore. I've been at this for about 7 or 8 months now. My history with the city, I've been here for 28 years, and so a lot of your faces are familiar. I met you when your side sewers were hooked up, and I did the inspection typically. But with the retirement of Alicia, I thought it would be a good opportunity, and probably one of the people that could quickest come up to speed. I'm just shoving regulations in my head. I know the lay of the land already, so it's made for a fairly timely transition. We've got a lot of things going on in Ocean Shores right now. If you guys have been driving around, you know that like every other lot's being cleared, the houses going up, farms are being farmed, and that basically starts out with the planning department, and the beginning phase of each project would be the clearing permits. And last year, in 2021, we cleared lots for 217 new homes, 155 RV lots. We authorized clearing permits for 46 danger trees that were out there, and there's a difference between removing a significant tree, and for those of you who haven't been in the clearing process with your own projects, significant trees are trees that are conifer species, meaning a fir, hemlock, spruce, cedar, those type of trees, 8 inches in diameter or larger at about chest height. That's considered a significant tree. We count those. Alder trees are more like something that we don't count as something that would need to be preserved. So the danger trees that we take out in the significant tree range, like I said, we did 46 of those last year, and we expedite those when somebody calls in and says, hey, I got a danger tree. Typically that means the tree's leaning over the house, limbs are coming off of it, something's causing immediate life health threat to either a person or their property. So we get on those. I try to be out there within a day of hearing that there's a danger tree, and if they can articulate that it's a serious hazard, then I'll try to be out there same day. Access to properties, I had 23 of those landscaping permits where they've expanded beyond their footprint of initial clearing. We had 3 of those, and then the other type of thing that goes on with the clearing is tree and brush removal beyond what the original boundaries of the initial clearing were. The reason it's important for me to get out on site ahead of a clearing operation is 2 things. To count the significant trees, because we're trying to preserve as many of the conifer species as we can, not discounting the fact that sometimes it's necessary to take the conifer trees down to build the house. It doesn't make sense to put a footing right next to a tree that you've cut all the roots on and then leave the thing standing for the sake of having a significant tree preserve, because the thing's going to end up coming down as a danger tree in the future anyway. So we do allow removal of significant trees in those circumstances. The other thing that I do is I evaluate the property for the potential of what's considered a critical area, whether that be shoreline habitat, wetlands, wetland buffers. And for those of you that are scared by the term wetland, it's a process, but it doesn't mean your property's useless. We can typically get through a delineation if we're just impacting buffers themselves. Most of the expenses, not including what it would cost to have a delineator come out and look at the property, they're running something less than $10,000 per lot to get through that part of the process. And we're selling mitigation credits in the Weatherwax Mitigation Bank, which is a piece of property out by the Public Works Yard down by Ocean Lake Way. It's a large piece of pristine upland forested land and shoreline and wetlands that are interspersed all through that. And so in conjunction with the Army Corps of Engineers and the Washington State Department of Ecology, they've set up a bank that will allow us to use preserved lands in that property to offset impacts to wetlands and stuff in the properties that we're developing in the platted areas of ocean shores. It's been a busy year, and we're going through quite a few wetland mitigation processes at this point. Let's see, let me give you a number there. We had 26 for this year and 16 fully processed. So that involved people making an application for a clearing permit. I went out and did a site review and found that there was significant enough evidence on site. Now, I'm not a wetland biologist, but I've worked with them long enough now, and I've been around ocean shores long enough and recognize the types of vegetation and hydrology that would go along with a wetland. So if I suspect that there's a wetland on the property, then I have to require, at the minimum, a reconnaissance report. And Municipal Code Chapter 19 outlines the requirements for that. And then if the reconnaissance report comes back, and I've missed one so far, and I'm going to go out with ecology and have them double check it, where the reconnaissance report will come back showing a wetland or a wetland buffer impacting the property, and then we move into the mitigation process where we come up with a plan to minimize the impacts to the wetland or the wetland buffer. We get the plan put together, we draft up a mitigation purchase agreement, and then we'll sell credits to the homeowner that wants to impact the wetlands on their property. We'll sell them credits in the Weatherwax Mitigation Bank. So that's kind of the process of the clearing end of things. The other things in planning that we've been doing, and part of the reporting on this is it seems to improve every month by how we're tracking data, the amount of permits and processes that we're moving through. We do boundary line adjustments and operations. Any of you that have had two lots that you wanted to combine, you're familiar with that. There's a boundary line revision to maybe take a lot line out and let your two lots be one lot. Or if you bought two lots and the guy came in with $1 million and says, hey, I'd like to buy that lot from you, you can put the line back in. It's called a boundary line revision undo. And we processed 22 of the boundary line revisions, which is the combination of the lots. And I've got 2 more in 22 that we're working on. And then we did 4 of the boundary line undos where they split the lots that had been combined already. In 2021, if you're doing something that's a little unusual in the municipal code, there's provisions for doing something that's not necessarily a permitted use. It would be considered either a prohibited use, which you're not going to be able to do it at all, or a conditional use. Conditional use permits require a staff report that planning puts together, and we go before a hearing examiner. And if the project has merit and seems to fit within the zone that is being proposed, I will support the project in the staff report. We've had 5 of those, and all 5 cases, the hearing examiner found in favor of the conditional use permits. We process SEPA, which is a government action. Any government action or permit required that's not a specific exemption has to go through the SEPA process. If you're building a commercial building or mini warehouses or even some government actions that could impact the environment will require that you go through the SEPA process. Our big dune fire break and the dune trail projects, those are going through SEPA. We've got a couple of larger commercial projects up in the commercial area of Ocean Shores. They're going through it. So in 2021, docks are the other, they're processed as an exemption, but they still go through the SEPA process. We did 59 of those last year, and we've got 4 on the books for 2022 so far. We have 1 rezone on the books, and I'm not sure if the one that we have on the books is the one that's still pending, but that's another process that will involve a hearing examiner, the city council, and public notice. So you'll see those kind of things come out in the paper. The places we're planning publishes these type of public notices where you guys have an opportunity to comment would be at the Ocean Shores Library on site, and then Sarah also posts them online on the city website. We had 1 variance that we processed last year that involved a public hearing, and we had a couple of people comment on that. Enforcement actions. That's another thing that comes out of planning. The beginning of that's my least favorite part of the job. Those of you who've heard me talk about it before, I never wanted to be a cop as a kid. I'm a volunteer firefighter with District 7. I enjoy that. And enforcement wasn't my favorite thing. But the rules are the rules. They're your rules. They're not my rules. I didn't make them up. I didn't have anything to do with the creation of them. But it's my job to enforce them. And we're going to do that. So I don't have numbers on how many enforcement actions actually went to trial. Violations for the environmental infractions in Ocean Shores are a mandatory court appearance. So anybody that I've forwarded enforcement action to code enforcement, they've been cited, they go before a judge, and the judge either finds merit in my determination of an infraction or not. We've got several pending right now. People, the biggest place that we run into problems is in the shorelines. People look around at what's been done in the past in the shorelines, and I can tell you Ocean Shores has a terrible reputation with the Department of Ecology as far as enforcing their environmental regulations. Our Shoreline Master Program was developed and adopted in 2018. So everything that happened before 2018 that's not allowed in the code today is considered a non-conforming development. It's allowed, it's legal. If you were able to put a bulkhead in and clear right down to the lakefront and prune it and keep it, as long as it's being maintained, it's considered a legal, non-conforming development. That doesn't mean the guy that moves in that hasn't had his lot cleared today can do the same thing that his neighbors did. And that's where we get into trouble. Guy moves in and says, gosh, I want mine cleared all the way down to the lake and put a bulkhead in. I can make my lawn flat. Well, the regulations today don't allow for that. One of the most prohibited actions of the lakes are bulkheads and retaining walls. They want the natural slope of the fresh waterways, and for that matter, if we still have it, the beaches and the bayfronts, they want natural vegetation to, for the most part, enforce or reinforce the banks that are there. If you start taking all the vegetation off, then you have erosion issues, and you run into the necessity for hardscapes or some type of a hard armor reinforcement of the shoreline, and that just doesn't have any ecological function, as defined by the Department of Ecology and our master program. So when somebody does get into a violation on the shoreline, I'm going to make them replace it. I mean, they might get it for a couple of months, but at some point they're going to put it back as close to the way as it was prior to them getting in and clearing. Like I said, it's frustrating for me because education, you guys being in the room today, pass the word around that, you know, look in the shoreline, tell your neighbors and stuff like that, look at the shoreline master program before you start hacking down at the lake. If you haven't been doing it over the last 15 years, you're probably not allowed to do it today. So, much better to do education than it is to do enforcement. Let's see, what am I missing?
I think that probably the one thing you're missing is your role on, and it's not really your role, but we had the discussion about when you have derelict buildings.
Yeah, that actually falls quite a ways outside of planning's purview. That's more code enforcement and building, I think, is probably where those discussions should, because I don't get involved in abatement. John gets involved once the abatement has occurred and gone through the processes with building and code enforcement, and his guys get tagged with putting fences up and stuff like that. I can let him talk about that when he gets up. Other than that, I guess, do we want to open it up to the floor? Or?
Let's have John speak,
Okay.
and we'll open up for the floor.
Okay, great.
John Wagner is probably, to me, one of the best people we've got working for the city. I only hear great things from people. I mean, anytime there's a problem, I call John. John goes out there, and usually I get a phone call back from whoever was the person and go, "That's a great guy. He fixed it. Why don't you have more employees like that?" So John, why don't you, you know, we talked about snow, we talked about flooding, and just what your role is.
Okay, I put this together like 4 or 5 months ago, and I'm kind of glad I did now, because this is unreal. I don't do this kind of stuff. But anyway, this is what I do, or not what I do, but my crew does, okay? And there's 4 of us. We just hired a 5th guy yesterday. I don't know if he's accepted the offer or not yet, but I don't do a lot with police and fire, once in a while some traffic control, if there's something going on. But other than that, water and sewer and everything else we try to do. The airport, I've got a 3,900-foot runway that we mow and maintain and weed eat, and 2 taxiways, or taxiways, same 3,900 feet. All the runway markers, the windsocks, any signage, chain link fence, building maintenance. Our airport is a big part of our storm drain system. We have thousands of gallons of water that run through that out into the bay, so we have to maintain that, and there's a garbage can. I've got, I got 10 parks. Emerson Park, we have a sprinkler system, tennis courts, 2 times. We do the weed eating, we have a garbage can. Chinook Park, we have mowing, sprinkler maintenance, weed eating, playground equipment, basketball court, windbreaks, picnic tables, fishing shelters, boat docks, fishing docks, a boat launch, the parking area, and 4 garbage cans. North Bay Park, we have the mowing, the sprinkler system, the weed eating, the playground equipment, the swing set, basketball court. We have the cook shed and the cook shed lighting, all the maintenance on the cook shed. The soccer field, the baseball field, the dugouts, backstops, bleachers, bathroom facilities, the boat launch, the boat dock, fishing dock, parking area, and 6 picnic tables, 7 garbage cans. Lions Club Park, we do the building maintenance, mowing, the smaller building maintenance. We didn't put the roof on the Lions Club or anything big time like that. Mowing, weed eating, playground equipment, we have a swing set and a garbage can. The north end of the Grand Canal, we do the mowing, the weed eating, there's a couple picnic tables and a garbage can. On the south end reservoir, the parking lot, there's a boat ramp, a fishing dock, and a garbage can. And, excuse me, that's the south reservoir, okay? The south end of the Grand Canal, we do the mowing, weed eating, there's a wooden walkway, a fishing dock, the outfall floodgates, the vegetation control, any debris that gets in the weir, anything like that, and removal of stuff inside the weir. We got the skate park, which is basically concrete maintenance, structural maintenance, groom feeder removal, and a couple of cans. Damon Point, we have a dog bag station, parking areas on both sides of Marine View Drive, mowing, 3 garbage cans, and then the TechSmart Park, we have a parking area, wind shelter, picnic table, a hand launch boat ramp, and we do the vegetation control and have a garbage can there. Total garbage, I've got 18 different stops in town, 44 cans total, and 4 recycled cans. Garbage is pretty much 7 days a week now. On the weekends, in the summertime, like say May through September, it's 8 hours a day. The rest of, we used to be about 3 days a week this time of year, but now it's 5 days a week, plus at least one weekend. The beach accesses we maintain, we've got 9. The West Chancellor, Pacific, Ocean Lakeway, and Taurus are the ones we drive onto the beach. Butterclam, Marine View Drive, Driftwood Street, Emerald Surf, and the jetty access. You can drive on the jetty access also, but the other ones are walk-on. Most of them have garbage cans. We do the signage, sand removal, things like that. Any kind of maintenance in the parking areas, like that. I've got 7 stations where you can get a plastic bag when you're walking your dog, so you can put the droppings in it. We check those twice a week, every Monday and Friday. 9 wooden bridges and 5 concrete bridges. We do all the maintenance on those. The wooden bridges are a lot of work. All the wooden handrails, the sidewalks. We put like roofing shakes on them so they don't get slippery when they get slimy. The concrete ones are a lot less work. We try to keep the vegetation off the edges, things like that. And that's all done by hand, there's no more spraying. Signs, I've got 1,259 individual posts, so a total of 2,295 total signs. And that goes up every day, there's always someone wanting a sign. The city entrance, we take care of the rock walls, we maintain the signage, the lighting, the weed eating, all the white curbing, things like that. The fountain lighting, cleaning the fountain, maintaining the fountain, the flagpole lighting, there's sprinkler system maintenance. We just automated the car counters, and we're still working some bugs out on that, so that's no longer a go there every day and write a number down. It's all going to be done on the computer, I hope. Same with shortcutting. Mowing, 200 miles approximately of residential right-of-way. As far as the storm drain, we've got about 150 miles of open ditch. We make culverts, make sure if something plugs up that we shed them out. Vegetation control, especially around the culverts. We have about 50 catch basins, and every once in a while we get beaver activity. We trap them, relocate them. We don't kill them. I do the public surplus. I organize, arrange the sale, complete the sale, do the paperwork, distribute where the money's supposed to go through Angie, and arrange all the pickups with the winning bidders, things like that. Weatherwax property, we do the sign maintenance, trail maintenance, the big stuff. Little stuff that falls over, the volunteers are really good about taking care of it, but if it's big, dangerous stuff, our crew goes in and does it. And we have 3 of those dog stations there with the bags, and that puts them. Building maintenance, we do the light bulbs, the furniture, the surplus, minor repairs to the bathroom fixtures, doors, buildings, mowing and weed eating at the library. Police, we provide them with the bags they sell. We do the mowing, the weed eating. We get rid of all their lighting. They have a lot of old fluorescent lighting, which we're upgrading to LED. Get rid of all that kind of stuff. I got a couple garbage cans there. The convention center, we provide them with their bags. A little bit of building maintenance, not much. They got 7 garbage cans, and we do help them with their special events. And then the building department, utility billing, and the city James building, we do minor building maintenance, the bathroom fixtures, doors, lighting, set up, tear down, furniture, moving surplus, storage locker, shredding, parking lot striping, curbing, pressure washing the buildings, weed eating around them. Coastal Interpreter Center, we clean the gutters. We don't do any mowing, anything like that, but any minor building maintenance. Special events, Flag Day, we set up and take down. The bleachers, provide extra garbage cans in the center median, set up and take down all the necessary traffic control devices to provide safe setup and orientation of the parade. Sand and sawdust, we're big parts in that. We set up bleachers, extra garbage cans, supply the sand, supply sand around town if we happen to have a sculpture doing one in the business. We arrange all the wood arrival. We organize the wood, get it for the chainsaw carvers where they want it. We move it around all weekend. That's a whole weekend deal. All hands on deck. 4th of July weekend, we all know about that. That's a lot of fun. The fish fishing derby, we provide extra garbage cans for the event, we provide the cones and barricades, fill the fishing tank for the kids. Citywide garbage cleanup, Randy Peck does one every year, we provide him with everything. Motorcycle weekend, we do the bleachers, jersey barriers for the road on each side of Chance, so the motorcycles, when they're tearing up the road, they're not gonna run into anybody. Street light maintenance, we've got 36 individual street lights in the roundabout at West Chance Lemire downtown corridor. Street sweeping, we've got 27.5 miles of bike lanes, downtown curbing, right away located within the city. I started in the city in '97, I took over the street department in '99. With the exception of my backhoe and my front end loader, and a few pickup trucks and things, but my major equipment is all pretty much the same. Fun facts, my road grader was built in 1979. That's a year after I graduated in high school, and I'll be 62 at the end of March. We recently had a major malfunction with the front end. We broke a spindle, and parts are no longer available. We went onto a nationwide, farm surplus, whatever, and found the spindle, but the road grader is really old. My Kenworth 1990 dump truck has just reached 1 million miles on the odometer. Those aren't all our miles, we bought it used. My Ford dump truck is a 97, my garbage truck is a 1992, and the sweeper's a 1995. Like I said, I got 5 people with all this, and I really, really need to, I don't need new, but I need newer equipment. If it takes me, 6 hours to do a job with what I've got, and I could do it in one with a better piece of equipment, I think that's better for everybody. But at the end of the day, I just do what I can with what I got.
Thanks, and you didn't put in there the Vector truck?
That's not mine.
That's not yours? Okay, that's old too, and it's falling apart, and our street sweeper has been,
The street sweeper's as good as it's ever been.
And it's probably about 80%, but we paid $4,800 for it, okay? Yeah, brand new, they're probably about $240,000.
and John, do you have thoughts on our recent flooding of our stormwater system?
Well, we got an awful lot of water in a very short period of time, and I don't think we were the only ones that had water in our yards by any means. It went away once it quit raining. I'd really like to spend more time maintaining the system. A lot of people don't even think we have a system. But when summer rolls around, we're mowing, we're doing these events, things like that, so we're not working on our storm drain. I just don't have the staff. And so it would be nice to have a couple people, that could work on that 8-9 months out of the year, keeping the ditches clean, things like that. But it's been a number of years since I've had a staff like that. I think I had 10 people at the height of my, whatever.
And then you and I had a conversation about why we can't plow the streets with snow.
I don't have anything.
Okay, you don't have anything, but we used
Our
to.
snow removal program is pretty much bags of solar salt, and we just try to make sure the James Building, the police station, the fire department does their own, library permits, utility billing. We try to get the sidewalks all, salted up first thing in the morning. If there's a lot of snow, like if we get an accumulation, we can scrape off the parking lots with the backhoe. And we try to do that before everybody comes to work, so we come in early sometimes when it's like that. But as far as, the roads, things like that, I just don't have any, nothing.
Okay, so with that, I guess we can open it up with some questions. And we got some feedback from people because we're recording this, that the questions they couldn't hear. They could hear us, and a lot of the questions that we had on the prior ones are a little bit more complicated, so it's not easy for us to repeat. So Diane is going to be the person with the mic. So if you have a question, I'd like you to stand up. She will come to you with the mic, and we'll get the question so everyone can hear us who is watching the recording. Okay, so okay.
Thank you. Eleanor Dolman. My question is to Marshall. I appreciate that you were new to planning, and I commend you for the way you jumped in with both feet and taken on the challenge. My question is, I'd like to get your opinion on pyramid zoning. I know in the past it's created problems, mainly in predominantly residential areas, but I think there could be potential problems in other areas in the future. So what is your opinion on the pros and cons of pyramid zoning? Thank you.
Thanks, Eleanor. So pyramid zoning has come up, and I've been involved in a couple of discussions with the Planning Commission. And one of the things that I see going on in Ocean Shores is we have different types of construction that are not necessarily suited to the zone that they're being built in. Currently, we still allow a residential development in a business area, which dilutes and takes away from our ability to site more businesses. We have areas that are designed for maybe multifamily, higher density, more impact, a different type of neighborhood. The intent was to have a different looking neighborhood that we allow through pyramid zoning a person to buy a single family residence. The downfall of that, and I don't know that I have a real solid opinion, all I know is that we're diluting certain zones that were set up for either commercial or high density multifamily developments or other things. We're diluting them with single family residential developments or less impactful than what would be allowed by the zone as a maximum. And at some point in the evolution of the city, we're going to run out of that room for a commercial development. The city needs areas for these contractors and service providers that are support of single family residential living. They need to run their commercial or industrial type business somewhere. And the city had these zones set up, the B1 and B2 zones, for these higher impact uses. So when they talk about, I don't know that full elimination of pyramid zoning is a great answer, but I know that it would probably make my life easier down the road if they didn't have pyramid zoning in the business districts or some of the higher density multifamily type development areas. But those discussions are current and ongoing and will continue with the Planning Commission. We'll be making recommendations as the council seeks guidance from the Planning Commission. And it's a subject that will come up again over the years.
Rich Wills, and this is probably for John. My memory is a couple of years ago there was a big brouhaha about sandburrs in some of the city parks, and I remember a city council discussion that talked about maybe irrigating those parks with water from the canals, and then I haven't heard anything more about, or I've lost track of. And is that feasible, and might there be something done towards irrigating the parks to address sandburrs sometime in our near future?
We've gotten almost all the sprinkler systems. In fact, I think we've got all the sprinkler systems in as good a shape as they're going to ever be in, as old as they are. They all work. And as far as getting rid of sandburrs, you got to get rid of the sandburrs, and then you got to water. As far as like the way it's been explained to me, if we start watering them, they're not going to go away. So it's just like everything else. You got to have the time to go in there and maybe scrape the salt off and reseed and start over. Something like that. But our sprinklers at Chinook, North Bay, Emerson, the downtown, they're all working as good as we can get them to work. And we're not taking any water out of the canals anywhere.
Thank you, Susan Canary. First of all, John, thank you for the doggy waste stations. And the question came up, how do we go about getting more? Do we contact you directly? Is there a process?
So I don't make those decisions, you know what I mean? If council wants them and wants to tell me where to put them, I have no problem doing that. They can be expensive, they can be, inexpensive, just depends on the situation.
And that probably would come from a recommendation from our Parks Board of where the location is supposed to be.
If you put them up, people use them,
Do you have another quick, Richard?
Marshall, thank you for your exhaustive introduction and informative introduction. One of the terms you used was SEPA, and I suspect that not all of us know what SEPA stands for. Could you just define the acronym, please?
Yeah, that's the State Environmental Project Review. And so what that is if a project comes in that could potentially have an environmental impact within the city, if it requires a permit and it's not an exempt activity, then it goes through the process. And when you fill out a SEPA checklist, it comes into the planning department. The City of Ocean Shores is the lead agency, unless we choose to pass off lead agency status to one of the other lead agencies like the Department of Ecology or the Army Corps of Engineers, if it were appropriate. So far, all of the SEPA checklists that have come in, we've been processing those in-house as the lead agency. As the lead agency, when the project comes in, there's a narrative that talks about what the project is, where it is, potential environmental concerns that would be associated with that project, and then that goes out to a whole bunch of different agencies, and they look at the project as it would pertain to their area of specialty, whether it be archaeology, the Department of Natural Resources, the Council of Governments in Grace Harbor County. They're on the list of distribution. So we send this checklist out. The Army Corps of Engineers, the Washington State Department of Ecology, the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, they're real big into the SEPA stuff. They issue hydraulics permits for work in and around the shorelines. So that SEPA process is basically the review as it would pertain to environmental concerns of a project. So does that?
And just to fill it, he just did a fantastic job of going through every agency. On the High Dunes Trail we're working on now, I think every single one of those agencies is involved in that right-of-way process. So it can be cumbersome when you're trying to deal with that many multiple jurisdictions.
And not only is there a SEPA review, when it gets to the federal level, there's also a joint aquatic resource use called the JARPA. And that's a very similar process, and that's if you're working around the water or wetlands or other critical area infrastructure. You'll invoke a whole nother set of review process, and it will go back out, and the agencies will look at it from a little different standpoint, as it would impact potentially a body of water or a fresh waterway or something like that. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
We have another question.
Steve Hensley, so as a follow-up to what you were just saying, so anytime we're gonna talk about cleaning up the fresh waterways, we're gonna be dealing with a handful of agencies. Is that kind of what I heard?
Yeah.
All of the plans to somehow clean up Duck Lake or the canals or
Yeah,
whatever.
all those plans.
All of those folks are gonna have their hand in the decision.
Yeah, they definitely will. They'll provide comment, and when the comments come back to the city, we will impose restrictions on the project or require further reporting or processes. A big term in engineering and stuff like that for projects going around is called best management practices. Typically, when an agency responds back and says, you're working around this canal end right here, we want you to use best management practices for erosion control so that we don't have sand migrating into the fresh waterway. Or I'm trying to think of something, the Department of Archaeology, we actually, during the force main construction of the the line coming in from the casino, we ran across some bones, human remains. And so the Department of Archaeology was informed, and we stopped the project, and there was a large process that we went through. And those kind of things are all determined through that SEPA process. You know, if you run into this condition, this is what you'll be required to do.
The other question I had, and it was to John, is are we putting away money to replace some of these old pieces of equipment? I know we're, in other areas, we're trying to put away money to replace the outdated equipment that we have, and I frankly can't remember what we're doing. So it's a question maybe to the mayor.
Yeah, we are, but not nearly at the rate that we need to support the equipment. One of the things that which I guess I probably should have known before I was mayor, but when I was mayor, as I start looking at pieces of equipment we have, I was just amazed that it's still running and how old it is with it. So we probably on the next budget cycle probably need to up what we're putting in and have a more effective replacement policy. And because we're pretty good when it comes to police and fire, but public works a lot of times gets pushed to the wayside.
The maintenance, the amount of money we spend on maintenance too is a lot.
Joanne Lacey, and my question is directed to John about the stormwater management in the city. With the recent flooding, and we have it repeatedly every year, it seems like, my house happens to be one of those that just floods, my driveway floods, and I've got water running across the road. Is there anything in your program to start addressing some of those troubled areas in the city?
Yeah, I've got a pretty good list going right now after the last event. Yeah, and you can call me in the morning, give me your address and things like that. But like I said, the problem is having someone dedicated to get involved in that. Good example, tomorrow I've got a forest abatement over on North Jetty Avenue. The whole right of way is covered with somebody's stuff that got evicted, and we're gonna haul it away to the dump. Well, I'm on the third day of about a 7 or 8 day ditching project down at the far end of Point Brown, and tomorrow we're gonna pull off that and go take care of this abatement. And so hopefully Friday we can get back to ditching, but who knows, what's gonna happen tomorrow. And I might never get back there ditching, it might be 2 weeks. And that's the problem I have is, and I can't be everywhere all the time, so when someone like yourself has an issue, if you call, I'll be there as soon as I can, we'll take a look at it. If there's nothing I can do, I'm not gonna tell you there's something I can do. There's a lot of flooding going on right now because of the development. And, if there's not a pipe to run the sewer jet through, or a catch basin to take the leaves off of, or a beaver dam to fix, I'm a maintenance guy. My crew does maintenance. We're not in the development part. So if somebody doesn't put enough fill on their lot and they got water into their house, there's nothing I can do about that. But if you've got water running across your road, that's not good, because that's not good for the road.
Right.
And I'm sure there's something we can do, because we've gotten to the point where, like I said, when I first started, we had 64 water over roadway signs, okay? And we used every one when it rained. And we went through and we did a lot of maintenance for the first 10 years I was here, maybe 15. And we didn't use any water over roadway signs. We got rid of all of them. We didn't get rid of them, we just didn't need them. And now I'm up to about 8 when it rains like it did. Spots where I need to make people aware that there's water on the road. And the maintenance we're doing now and the way we're approaching it, if I was to work here another 10 years, I might need those 64 again. That makes sense.
And just to add on to that, we are collecting the areas that we've had significant flooding. What John said, that with development is a very concern of mine, because some of the areas that are flooding are new areas, and part of it has to do with some of our codes and where they're taking the water off of a piece of property that used to be a vacant is causing problems. And if you drive around and you see places that there were ditches, and the ditches have kind of fallen in, and sometimes in culverts. So we're taking a look at that. One of the things that I asked, I go, so do we have a stormwater plan of just where our ditches are supposed to be? And they've got kind of handwritten things, so we're looking to see if there's something that we can do as a survey of exactly what we have. But you know, one of the things that obviously in Ocean Shores that we deal with is we deal with what the past was. I mean, if you go to Seattle, you know, they have a stormwater system. We have ditches, and we have a lot of ditches, and we have a lot of areas to cover, and we have equipment that is old, and we're a little bit understaffed. But anyway, those are the things that we're working on. Don't have a solution today. John and his team was working really hard on fixing it, and we're going to look at it. And if you're not on the list, there's paper in the back that you could put your address on, and we'll follow up. But I charged Scott to collect all the data that we have on people that we had significant flooding, and see if there's something we can do before it happens again next year. But it's much improved from when I first moved here, but again, our maintenance hasn't been where it needs to be.
Yeah, that's what the mayor said, I was gonna suggest, if you leave an address, because we are compiling a list of addresses of area, people that were flooded, that, you know, where we saw water cross, we just wanna make sure it's as comprehensive as we can. So please, yeah, give that to us.
And also, your ditch is full of water. I mean, that's very common in our town. The ditches are part of our storm system, and, you know, it might be 6-7 months out of the year you've got water in your ditch. The important thing is the water doesn't get up on the road or into your yard, things like that, where it could do damage. So, those are the kind of things I like to be alerted of, you know, and I can't be everywhere every day, so if you just let me know. You can call anytime, I got the cell phones always on.
Hi, Connie Clifford. It's a ditch question. Are they all supposed to be, I mean, I know they're flooding right now, but is there supposed to be drainage in all of them? Because I live on Canal Drive, and I've been asked this question, and I honestly don't know the answer, because a lot of them have been, I think, physically stopped up. I mean, maybe on purpose, I don't know.
Are you on the north end?
I am, yes, on the north end.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter, because the south end's just as bad.
And I'm on the canal side.
I've got a spot on the south end that was really bad, and I've got a spot up by the golf course and even further north, and we've addressed part of that last week.
Are they supposed to be open?
Well, when people say flow, okay, let's take, for example, Polaris Street. Everybody knows where that is? Okay, all the water from all the neighborhoods come to Polaris Street, and then it runs to the Grand Canal. And the closer you get to the Grand Canal, the more flow you see. But when you get out into the Cygnus Street and Sexton's Avenue and things like that, the ditches just go up and down. Okay, you're not gonna, I call it the rubber duck test. If you throw the rubber duck in there, it's not gonna like whoosh, it's just gonna go up and down. The wind might blow the rubber duck, but it's not gonna flow. But the closer you get to the Grand Canal, then the duck starts picking up speed and going, okay? So the ditches out in the residential areas, if everything's kept clean and open, it will flow eventually to Polaris and go out into the Grand Canal. Sometimes the Grand Canal gets up high because the outfall's closed because the tide's way up high. People have docks and they call, they're concerned their dock's about ready to go underwater. There's nothing we can do about that. That's a Mother Nature thing. Unless we do some improvements to the weir down there, you know, pumps, things like that, which is, I'm sure eventually down the road that's gonna have to be an option, but that's the one thing a lot of people say, well, it's plugged up. You know, if it's going up and down, when it stops raining, it goes back down. You know, I just don't want the water on the road. That's my goal, you know, I don't want it on the road. And so as long as it's not up on the road or running across the road, then I feel that our guys are doing their job.
First of all, John, I want to say thank you because I did call you twice. My first main concern was a big gigantic cover that goes over like a sewer thing, and it got covered with the water. And I asked you, does it leak will I have everybody's poop flowing in the ditch? And you told me not to worry, it's sealed well. Well, I haven't seen any of that stuff. You also keep by, and you guys cleaned out the ditch just before we had the big rain, so that helped a lot, you know, in the drainage over where I'm at. I did have a question in regards to our trying to establish a neighborhood watch in our community. We were told that you are, not you per se, but you know, in the area where you work at, the signs are being stored over there from the previous attempt to organize a neighborhood watch. I asked Mr. Bird in regards to him looking to see, you know, where they're at so we can come and pick them up, and we didn't get any response. And the second question, other question I have is, has the regulations on where to post the neighborhood watch signs still the same where they go under the speed limit signs? Or do you have to come out and put in extra posts? And also, the last question, I promise.
Time out, I'm old. I do have neighborhood watch signs, I have a few left over, and I don't know if there's a regulation, it's more, I try to put them on an existing post, because the more posts, the more the mower's gotta go around, things like that. If it's a situation where there's nowhere else to put it, I would put a post in, I would rather not, but I try to put them on an existing post wherever possible. Can't put anything on a stop sign post other than the street sign on top, so that's not an option, but speed limit signs work good. Yeah. Okay, what's your third question?
The last question is, you know that bridge that goes over towards where your building is, or where you guys do your parking and all that? The nice bridge has only 2 lights working. Are you guys ever gonna make the other lights work? That's on both sides of the bridge.
I'm not sure if I know what bridge you're talking about.
It's the one that.
Ocean Lake Way?
Yes. Yes. 2 Point Brown.
I don't think there's any lighting on that bridge.
There's 2 lights that comes on in the evening.
On personal property.
It's on the street,
Hmm.
not personal property.
See, and I run the streets department, I should know that. I'll look tomorrow. Do you have my email?
Yes?
Yeah, send me an email. Just say,
Hard.
yeah. I'm trying to think of what your first name is.
Naughty.
Nani, yeah. Just put Nani street lights on bridge. I'll remember.
Okay.
Thank you. First of all, Mayor, my name is Reinhard Belo. Mayor John, outstanding work with all of your groups. Back to the fresh waterways. We had our house reappraised the other day, and the gentleman that did it said that there was a 10-foot buffer easement right away. He wasn't sure what to call it. And he said we had to get a land use agreement signature because we're not original owners. Is that canal wide on all the canals or just in a certain neighborhood?
So, what they were talking about was it's a given that when they set the master plan, or when they drafted the master plan for the fresh waterways and ocean shores, the shoreline master program, it's inherent that there are freshwater emergent wetlands all the way around the lakes and canals. Now, whether that wetland is 6 inches wide or whether it's 20 feet wide depends on where you're at and what the profile of the bank is. The 10-foot vegetative buffer that your appraiser was talking about starts at the landward side of that freshwater emergent wetland. So, and I have the responsibility of marking the edge of that vegetative buffer and measuring up to 10 feet. In some cases, the stake is 10 feet from the water's edge. In other cases, it's 25 feet from the water's edge because there's 10 feet of wetland between the lake and where I start my measurement. That's what that's about.
Okay.
And the reason we have the freshwater, or the vegetative buffer, is because those wetlands would be considered jurisdictional wetlands of the state. If we didn't write that into our shoreline master program, then every time you wanted to do something on the shoreline, you would have to delineate and go through the wetland mitigation process. And so we figured, the crafters of the Shoreline Master Program determined that a 10-foot vegetative buffer, in addition with the 25-foot structural setback, the minimum buffer required for a wetland is 40 feet, and we've gone 35 feet with just a buffer and a structural setback. And they considered that sufficient protection of those areas of the lakes and canals. But it is through the entire lake and canal system.
Perfect, thank you.
So John, Richard Wills again, and this is a question that I hope can make you a little better educated. There's a huge amount of construction going on Ocean Shores, and I'm actually addressing the ditches and the street flooding. Is all of that construction and perhaps putting down non-permeable driveway surfaces, asphalt or concrete, or the footprint of the house, the foundation of the house, is all of that construction having an adverse effect on the drainage system being able to get that water away from our streets? So is the construction adversely affecting our water drainage, is the root question. And you may not know the answer to that.
Well, if you got 12,000 lots in town and 6,000 of them have buildings on them, and then you add 2,000 more buildings, that's less places for water to sit. So it's got to get out into the system. So it would make sense to me that, you know, it is affecting it, but, you know, I don't know. I'm a maintenance guy.
Hi, Jean Chaddock. My question is for John and the drainage. So there's no development going on where I'm at. I'm on the north end of Canal Drive out there. There was water running across the roadway. And so my question is, number one, is there any kind of maintenance schedule? You know, they always tell you clean your drainage, your leaves, everything before fall. And since I've been in the area, there's never been any drainage clean out in that area. So do you have a schedule for cleaning?
Are you, like Alder Birch Court area?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, if you look behind the old hardware store, we've just opened all that up so it can drain through the park there into the canal.
Yeah.
And we'll clean the ditch. I've got the area at Puffin Street all the way up to Alder Court located. There's a bunch of wires sticking out. There's a sewer line in there. I don't know if I'll be able to cut a ditch in there or not because of existing utilities. And again, I'm working down on the south end of Point Brown. We've got the locates called in on the north end of Canal, so that's where we're going to try to go next. We already did the improvement there by the north end Grand Canal Park. That should relieve most of the water, but yeah, I'm going to get there as soon as I can. It's on the list. It's definitely one of the bad areas the last time we had rain.
Well, yeah, the thing is just, it had never been cleaned out, and then I don't know if it was your department or whatever, but there at the intersection of J.K. Lewis and Canal Drive, they tried to shore up the corner, and when they did, they blocked the whole culvert off, and that is what caused water to actually.
And that's all been opened back up.
Yeah.
And there's a place for the water to go now. It doesn't just run past that first house behind the old hardware store and then stop. It's now an open ditch, and it can make it to the waterway and drain.
Yeah, but is there any kind of schedule for preemptive as far as cleaning these ditches out, or not? Is there any kind of maintenance schedule going on?
That's not, I don't like, do Division 2 one year, Division 3 the next year. We just put out fires, okay? And that's what you guys had down on your end. And out of the dozen or so spots that I ID'd the last time when we had the big event, that's one of them. And we're about, I'd say probably 35% done with what we've done. We need to clean the ditch from J.K. Lewis back to Alder or Birch Court, whatever the first one is. And then I want to go all the way to Puffin because there's an option there too. There's a pipe under Puffin that can run it out the golf course. So yeah, if you want a date or a schedule, I don't have that, but I'm gonna give it my best shot.
And I'll just add to that one of the things the council did do is that we voted to increase the stormwater rate, and part of that is to give some additional staffing to John to work on that. And we are in the process of identifying. John was really good about it. He goes out and fights fires. I mean, it's where it is, and so that's our focus of getting it. But our plan is to have some type of a plan in place, but we just don't know what that plan is going to be, because, like, obviously, in my short time of being mayor, that wasn't something that I actually spent a lot of time thinking of. But obviously, driving around, really realizing that we have some difficulties with that, and John's team's done a great job. But we are, like anything, we're working on trying to get more of a routine in place, so that we are ahead of the game instead of fighting fires.
Thank you, Susan Canary again. Are we having spring cleanup this year?
Well, let's put it this way. When I ran very first time for city council, that was one of the things I ran on. I haven't had any conversation with our public works about what the process is going to be. My desire is to bring back cleanup like it was in Ocean Shores and not doing the voucher. But I haven't had any conversation with the team because we don't have a public works director with it. But my hope is to have cleanup once again. Any other questions? Scott, got anything that you want to add?
No, I mean, I think I just want to thank John and Marshall for coming out, because I think they did a fantastic job of just showing you, all these things that you don't know that the city is doing. That list was really comprehensive, and actually John put that together for me 4 or 5 months back when I was down at the Public Works Department on sort of a project to understand all of the nuances of public works. And there's just so many things in the city that happen on a day-to-day basis that people just don't have any idea of. They get done on a very small number of staff people. So I just really want to thank John and Marshall for coming out tonight and kind of helping shed some light on their world for you all.
And I would also say that if you've got any issues, I mean, both John, Marshall, myself, Scott, we're willing to listen. We'll take your phone calls. We'll get back to you. We might not have all the answers. We might not be able to solve it. It might be a bigger thing. But again, I have found these two guys to be extremely responsive, and the feedback that I've got to anyone who's contacted him, I mean, like, he's a master. If I go, I drove by a sign, because I'm terrible with the streets, and he can tell me exactly where it was. So if you want to be contacted by us about anything, there's a piece of paper that you can put your address on. We're always accessible by email, and again, our goal is just to make things a little bit better in Ocean Shores. So thank you guys for coming.